So does anybody have any questions with this particular technique or want to share any particular experience or sensation that they had while they were going through the technique? Yes, please. The technique, until you get really entrained into the process, because it's almost like it becomes like building a spiritual muscle. I would definitely recommend it in the beginning. And then once you get more adept to it, it's like a 5-minute seal. You do a quick seal. But in the beginning, because what you're doing is you're training your body through it. One of the things that happened to me personally when I became entrained into that energy is my whole body, I actually inside got really cold, like freezing cold. The frequency has a cool feeling to it. And it was like it set in and anchored in. So I think, ask your guidance, do I still need to run through the whole process? Because I think you'll feel when you can just do a quick shield and a quick connect. Because when you do a quick connect, you fortify, you kind of amplify the field. And especially if you're going to walk in to group scenarios or a challenging issue, let's say maybe you've got to go have a board meeting and say something very difficult to someone, you want to have your shield in place, to really help you feel balanced and kind of create a boundary so that you can say what you need to say, because sometimes we have things that we need to do that involve us in other people's energies and things. So, does that help? Okay, thank you. Intention is the same. Just intend. If your inner vision is not that well developed yet, no worries. Just intend. Put your intention there. It's happening. It's intention or visualization. Each one of us are constructed a little differently. So some of us are more visual, some of us are more audio or whatever. So no worries. And just intention is fine. Yes.
Have you always been in that?
Myself, yes.
Okay, so there was a time when you were an untrained empath?
Absolutely.
All right.
I was the most, yes. I used to cry as a little child, I didn't know if I was coming or going, because I was just barraged.
Yeah.
Yes,
so
absolutely.
You were very red and very quickly overwhelmed.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so I have a friend who is an untrained empath and not looking for change, and that's okay. I let her be who she is and how she is. So how can I best serve her when we are around and about her in my place? What would have helped you?
Well, honestly, any kind of shielding process, I don't know if she does. Does she do shielding process? Because the issue is the empath gets psychically slunged. We just start to perceive energies and we don't know if it's us or if it's the other person. So the very first level is understanding that boundary, at least some kind of technique, because I don't know if she's even aware of that concept, but she is aware that she's overwhelmed by external energies. So the only way to remedy that is to bring herself into clarity about how do I feel in the moment. Because again, one of the most important things is to identify when you wake up in the morning, get a check-in with yourself. How are you feeling today? Because as you go throughout the day, you may pick up energies. You'll find yourself, if you're at work or something, you'll be all of a sudden your mood will shift. This is very common for an empath because we start to feel energies from other people or something that's in the room, and then we start to feel it and we think it's us. So it's very clear she needs to disidentify it from her. You know what I'm saying? Because we're unclear where it's coming from. And then, of course, the shield, if we could get her to do the shield or some kind of, even just a beginning light shield. We don't have to go through all of this.
Let's say that you have a person in front of you who is not wanting to do that. So they are where they are. And I would not impinge on anyone.
Yes.
Yes. So one thing I did, for instance, is that when I know she's coming over, I will sweetgrass the room so that it's clear. She won't be feeling a whole bunch of stuff. Are there any other tips like that?
Honestly, the thing that's very important for her is she needs to take responsibility.
Okay.
And it is very challenging for those that we love, because there's either one choice. She's either going to continue to be overwhelmed, or she's going to take the responsibility to change that behavior into something else. And there's really nothing you can do until she really decides, I'm willing to try something else.
come back down into the center of the brain?
You know, when you're sending it out, you're connecting yourself into the God core. So it's almost like the Merkabahs become a symbol for your light body. You know what I'm saying is the balanced unity of that. But I notice that with some of us, it starts to become more personal to us. So if it feels better to bring that geometry back and hold it, by all means do. This is like a core technique process, but what I find is that a lot of people, sometimes their symbol will start changing, their higher self will say, let's work with this symbol. And it's to help bring a stability to the body, or it has a particular energy signature. But generally, the technique itself is you send your Merkaba out. But again, I think it's important that you honor and listen to your own being when experimenting and feeling the process, because what's really the most important process is the field. You are intending and you're connecting to the liquid crystal field, and that is where the divine blueprint of literally the human body is. According to the Guardians, these bodies are Christ. So again, Christ is not affiliated with fundamental religion in the way it's been distorted. There was a figure named Jesus Christ, but we are all Christ. So this Christ template is what we're connecting to. That's what the 12th dimensional field represents. It's the intelligence, it's the force, and it's our blueprint. So we're connecting to that and saying, I want to embody and bring this into embodiment here. So you may find your own way as you go through the technique. It feels good for you to bring the star back, or maybe your symbol will change. But really the entrainment to the field and working with that process is important. And then you'll find you can do it like this. It actually starts to become permanent after you get to a certain level of light body accretion. You don't have to work it anymore. So.
The second part was, you mentioned earlier about doing for children or for other spaces.
Yes.
Are you going to talk about that, or can you share?
No, I can share that with you. So again, I have an indigo and parent calibration. I didn't bring it with me. If you email me that question, I will send you that technique. But basically what it is that you're asking permission with your child's higher self. A lot of the times you'll kind of get a yes or a no, but what I notice all the time is that the parent is pretty much there's always a contract involved that allows that to be so, because especially now a lot of us are bringing in crystal children and indigo children that are very sensitive to external energies. And so shielding them and teaching them to shield once they're old enough is really amazing. I have had cases of 10-year-olds that have been trained how to shield, that have actually extracted entities off their friends with the shield. So it's an amazing tool. So the calibration process is a part of calibrating her nervous system so that she feels more peaceful. And as well, once you would shield yourself, maybe at bedtime before she goes to sleep, you would then connect with her higher self and guidance and go through a shielding process for her body. And that's all you would need to do. Okay, great.
What about grandparents doing that?
Grandparents? Absolutely. Absolutely. You mean your grandparents? Just a lot of times in adult situation, you have to make sure you ask permission. And you'll kind of get a yes or no answer. One of the great examples of this that I learned is that I was staying, this is a exact sample of this, is that I was staying at my family's house. And I thought that I would bring peace and harmony by clearing the living room. So I was thinking, wow, it's messy in here. There's lots of stuff on the walls. Let's get that out of there. So I went ahead and I cleared the room. That night, when my parents came home, they basically had the largest fight I've ever seen them have. And I went, oh my God, why, when I was intending to create peace and harmony and light in the room, did they have the biggest fight in that room I've ever seen them have? And I learned that sometimes when you're in someone else's space and they're comfortable with a certain resonance, it doesn't mean it gives you permission to go and clean up their stuff, because they actually were more comfortable in the other energy and they created all that negativity back so they would feel more comfortable. So I learned that not always when we're creating peaceful spaces, you have to ask permission. Again, your space, you don't have permission, obviously. Your dominion is your realm, and as well with children. It's the same way for the parent-child contract. But through adults, you really do have to ask permission. You know, psychic peeping is really not good practice. Which is, does that make any sense?
No, not for me.
Asking permission?
It's my granddaughter.
Oh, your granddaughter. I'm sorry, I thought you meant your like grandparents. I see, you're the grandparent.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Very similar to what I said to this young woman here with her child. Yeah. Absolutely. Yes. Because sometimes the parent doesn't know.
Yeah.
But the grandma can step in.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
If you would have had an absolute attraction to the Star of David, would that signify anything?
Well, probably what you were feeling was, the question was if she had a real attraction to the Star of David, what would that signify? The Star of David has been used as representation of Jewish culture and Judaism, but it's a sacred geometry, and it belongs to human beings. It's a part of human consciousness technology, and that geometry literally means unity. So if we're trying to bring our body into unity, we would be very attracted to that particular symbol. So that's what I feel. If you want to bring the polarity into one, you would be attracted to the Merkaba star, for sure. Yes?
I have a two-part question. I've had the fortune or misfortune, I'm not sure which it is sometimes, to practice both quite intently the Dornvilla Melchizedek Merkaba activation technique that he teaches in his Flowered Life workshops, and as well Ashiana Dean or Anna Hayes.
Yes.
And I'm finding as quite a similarity from your work to her work, and her work in particular. Is there connection? And then part two of that question is with both of those, when I reached a certain point in the practice of the Merkaba, I stopped. And I'm not even sure why I stopped at this point, except I think I got afraid of what I was experiencing. So I'd like it just
Sure, about all of that. You know, this is one of those things that obviously is the uncomfortable dialogue, because as much in my utopian heart as all of us are endeavoring to create unity and diversity, you know, what this gal was saying is that there's some similarities of the work through other speakers and presenters of this particular body of work. And so I have had a direct experience. I am a Syrian walk-in, and it happened in the 2000-2001 period. And the languaging of the Syrian has a lot of the holographic templating. The language is very similar. And so when I found out that indeed those organizations did exist, the one that was most similar to me was the Ashiana Dean material, and yet I was very clearly told that it was not my purpose to become a part of that group. So I have had a direct experience, and I am told quite often that the information is almost verbatim, and the beings that are certainly in connection in terms of a guardian consciousness field, the way they describe it is the guardian is a consciousness field of unity avatars. And what I feel with the body of work of Keylontic Science and Azurite Cross is they are an amazing bunch of beings that are like technicians. They are here to bring the code into the field. And I feel that through the success of creating that bridge, there are others of us that reach that vibration and are able to access the intelligence. So the intelligence of the hologram and overriding the hologram and working with that reality is very similar languaging. So no, I do not have any affiliation with Azurite Cross. However, I am familiar that our language is very similar. I have had a direct experience with the Syrian Council, and according to Keylontic Science, that's not possible because there's only 3 speakers on the planet. All I can say is I've had an experience. That's all I can say. In terms of you meeting a certain cap, with that, I think what happened is that generally growth or expansion only comes at a certain ceiling and then something else happens. The challenge with groups and modalities is many of them are not working with the sovereignty model, meaning you're not codependent on the organization or the material or the group, because that is not the purpose. The purpose is finding your truth. And on the stair step of learning and expanding, you will come across all kinds of material that you'll want to incorporate because it resonates with you. Then there will be a time it doesn't resonate with you. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. I think the challenge for us is, especially the human being, and especially the light worker, we have a sense of isolation and a wanting to belong into a situation, into a group or an organization. And yet we have a big problem with ego corruption. The ego kind of takes over the material and then again becomes twisted, very much like organized religion. This is unfortunately the human situation, and why I go on about understanding ego consciousness and the reality perception here. Because just because we're speaking about spirituality doesn't mean that it's infected with ego. Learning how to discern the truth is your responsibility. And that's really what I want to empower people to understand. This isn't the end all, of course. However, take what you need and expand upon it. Discard what you don't and move on. And if you stay for a while, that's great, and you have to go, that's great, that's fine. It's not about creating this inclusive modeling where we have to be, with each other forever, and you're going to be ostracized because you leave. This isn't about this at all. It's about empowering personal growth. There is no guru anymore. I'm a facilitator of information because I've agreed to do that. Each one of us is a guru. Each one of us is becoming empowered. And that's really what the new modeling is. So I think what happened is, unfortunately or fortunately, there isn't a great answer with this, because I have the same issues where when you start to create a group and it becomes more of an organization, the ego infection comes in. And as someone who's facilitating that body of work, it's very hard to keep that field clean at all of the different levels that people are coming to process and be a part of the organization. So truly it's about self-empowerment, and I think what happens is we reach a certain ceiling, because this information at a certain level is meaningless. What happens is when we're developing spiritual consciousness, we need an archetype for spirit to help us integrate, because we are to become the embodied spirit. But at a certain point, the dogma, or we become reliant on it, you will be asked to leave, because you cannot rely on anything besides your relationship with God. If there is something that gets in the way with that, whether it's an organization, a body of work, or spiritual material, whatever it is, it will be removed. Because you are to be directly connected, no intermediary, period. So this information is designed as a springboard to bring you into, because at certain points we get lost, because no one told us the alien agendas. Nobody told us our histories. Nobody's talking about these levels, right? So we're in it, trying to resonate what feels in alignment, what is truth, how do I expand that truth, and everybody's got a little piece of it. So it is kind of confusing. It's really about learning discernment, personal empowerment, and with any quote-unquote facilitator, teacher, there will be a cap, because your spirit will take you out of that and say, you're not meant to be a follower. There is none of that anymore, right? You just disseminate the material, and you may get tons of it. You may resonate with this, you may not. You may use it for a time, you may not, whatever. Feel what empowers you to your connection to God. And that's really the bottom line. So.
Thank you. That was a good explanation.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
For sealants, put into the giant focal crystal. What would you say about that?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
For the Oracle sealing,
yes.
Some people use the focal crystal. And are you familiar with that?
I'm not familiar with that. No. Yes, I wouldn't know. Thank you. Hi. Yes. Definitely do.
I had a question about contact with spirit guide. You had mentioned that I have had some experiences where I didn't know what to trust and what not to trust, and I'm trying to clarify that. But I'm not sure. Is there a way to clean up your connection with, or clean up my connection with my God?
It would be a toughy field from my standpoint, because what happens is your guides are either going to have to come up to par to that frequency, or you're going to be assigned new guides, which happens a lot. So, as strange as this is, we're all in school right now. So, a lot of our challenges is we have at times thought the ascended master figures or certain guidance was actually seeing a larger view than us. And that's not always true, an accurate assessment. They have a different vantage point, but they're not in terms of the absolute power or giving our power away to them. It's really not wise. Again, a lot of what we're doing is re-educating guides on the other side. They're also learning, and believe it or not, being re-educated into what's happening during Ascension. What's happening on the planet right now is unprecedented. And it's multi-levels of beings and entities, both human and non-human, that are undergoing some massive shift of re-education of what ascension of the universe actually looks like. So it's very strange, because you'll connect to different vantage points. Like, say the New Age talks about ascended masters, the Ray masters, the ascended masters, and there's a lot of New Age material that talks about the ascended master material, but this is a partial ascension. These are humans that have ascended to a parallel earth but are still not fully ascended, which means they still have ego and darkness and polarity and agendas and stuff. So they may have, certain levels of wisdom to teach us in terms of our elders, but a lot of the times, again, because we're not used to this multidimensional phenomena, when we start connecting to beings, it can be overpowering. And, we're so in awe of it, of the experience, and we have to be careful about that. Don't be in awe of it. It just is. This is. We are multidimensional. These are our brothers and sisters. We're not here to take directional orders from them. But, if there's guidance and things that are in support of who you really are, and many times you'll be teaching them. So it's really coming, again, from a place of empowerment, moving out any intermediary between you and God. Your guidance is there to support you, but not the end all. You still have to come into what feels right for you. So the 12D shield will help to begin to entrain that cosmic crystal consciousness, which is unity intelligence, which means either you're going to come to that level or not come to that level, because that's the level you're communicating with, the intention. Does that help? Thanks. Sure.
Now, this goes back a little bit to what you were saying earlier. You talked about the connection with the Sphinx in Giza. Is there a connection with this Temple Mount?
Here?
Temple Mount.
Where's Temple Mount?
Well, that's in Jerusalem.
Oh, in Jerusalem.
And I've heard some interesting stuff around that, and that a lot of the wars over there are about this. And so there is a significance.
Yes. Well, it's interesting because, again, as some of us are planetary grid keepers, we go and read the cellular memory. So that is one of my functions here. And certainly I'm going to Egypt in the next 30 days, and it has to do with the unraveling of some of these processes of the Jerusalem and Roman influence and the Vatican influence, which apparently has an obelisk in St. Peter's Square that belonged to Caligula. So there's a lot of interesting revelations happening at this time about our hidden history. It's really quite fascinating. Now I understand why I rejected history in school, because I knew I'd have a whole other re-education later.
Also, is this building the shield, is it on your site?
Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. The 12D audio is free on my website for download. You can go right to the site and download it right there.
Great. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you.
Can you speak to the whole essential question as to what's really going to happen? There's talk of people ascending, leaving the planet, living in another dimension separate. The question of whether that's true for the entire human population or 10% or 25% or whatever? And what does it entail? And what are the signs that it's coming?
So the question was talking about the ascension process and if there's any sort of insight as to what that is going to appear like in the human condition. And, I think that really what we are walking into is a total mystery. There really isn't a completion and answers. One of the things that I'm aware of is that the original Ascension Plan changed in 2005 because of the challenges with the Stargate system, meaning the controllers had gotten to a level of taking over the inner Templar of the Earth, and it was not possible to complete a full ascension in the original organic way the planet was designed to. So as of 2005, I was reassigned, and that reassignment was called Ascension Plan B. And Ascension Plan B was actually about building transit stations and multiple hubs on the planet that would act as surrogate stargates to literally help as many beings at whatever vibrational level and genetic material they were holding to have a chance for what's known as host matrix transplant or rehabilitation of the DNA to be reacclimated into that. Now, I know that there are many other agendas, like when the New Age talks about ascension, they commonly say fifth dimension. For me, I know that to not be a truth. The fifth dimension is actually where an invasion has been prevalent. So when we talk about fifth dimensional ascension, which is very common in the ascension lexicon of talk, I know that that's not my mission. So it's almost like my purpose and role here is to move all the way out in the connection to Andromeda and to connect into the core and get as many transit stations at whatever level that can be rehabilitated to eventually move into that direction. So it wasn't like a fifth dimensional Earth, which was the original Ascension Plan. The third dimensional Earth, do you remember the model, the multidimensional model from yesterday's talk, I spoke of 3 Earths. And so that fifth dimensional Earth was the original Ascension Plan. We were merging the third dimensional etheric body of the Earth. It would be emerged into the fifth dimensional plane, which is hard for our minds to even fathom how that would be accomplished, but they discuss it as particle and antiparticle lines merging. So it literally would be like parts of the Earth would just be there. It would start to just appear as this merge occurred. As of 2005 and the Katrina event, that all changed. It was upon that event that it was said that the decision was that that was not going to be possible. So we were moving to a different plan. And so this plan is called the Ascension Plan. We're building, what the 12-dimensional field is, actually, to understand this, is hubs. When you connect to that hub on the Earth, what you're doing is you're connecting to creating a hub on this Earth that allows, literally is poking a frequency, poking through the frequency fence. This Earth has a grid around it that is controlled. And the 12D shield is a way, when you connect to the 12D shield, not only are you protecting your body, you're poking a hole through the net. I know that sounds, but that's literally, that's why they told me to do it this way. We're creating hubs, which means on the surface of the Earth, you have hubs that are able to connect to higher frequency, and then you have descending hubs. What they're saying with the amplification of polarity is doing to the planet right now, because it's almost like thinking of the planet as a global brain. And the neural network of the global brain is really damaged. And it's been damaged from a multitude of reasons. So that means that there's parts of that global brain that cannot feel, it can't conduct the frequencies coming in. So when we bring in the 12D shield, we're trying to build hubs that allow conductor points. So this frequency has a place to land. Because without a conductor, it's like getting your cable box without your cable service, right? So in this case, we have the cable service, but we have no cable box. We're trying to lay those boxes and lay those gridworks so there's something this frequency can connect to on the planet. Because even if it's here and it goes by, if we can't bring it here, it's pointless. You know what I'm saying? We need to bring it to the Earth. So that's what we're doing, is we're building hubs.
So by practicing this, we become the hub.
Yes, that's exactly.
Could you repeat that? Others would not have heard it.
If you practice this, you become a hub. That's exactly it.
I would really put a neighbor when recording the source. We send a bird up and
Yes, when you send, and again, the total recording is on my website too for you, but yes, the Merkaba goes out. Yes, all the way out. And that's like you're grounding into the core. It stays out there. And so you do that again, you know, as you're fortifying your shield. Yes. Sure.
We have lots of energy downloads and lots of frequencies coming to us. So when you say that we all shielding from, where's it coming from?
Where are the frequencies coming from? How it's understanding alchemy is that every time we have a stellar body, I think a lot of us that are interested in astrology have probably noticed, like every week there's some, you know, Mars alignment or something where they're saying this hasn't happened in 250 years. And so when we have these stellar body alignments, what's happening is a transmission. Very much like the 2012 cycle, what's happening is our Earth, the Sun, and the Milky Way universal core are all aligning. And when they align, a portal opens up and allows a transmission that never happened before. And it's a transmission of magnitude of frequency that is extremely high. So that same concept happens at every level. When you and I come together, there's a special frequency that's exchanged because you have a specific genetic material and I have a specific genetic material. So a new alchemy is created. So that process is with everything, with human beings, with stellar bodies, with the cosmos, with the photon belt. So all of these stellar bodies, no matter what they are, create some kind of impact on our consciousness here. And this is why the ascension, we've been moving up. It's literally like a spiral. The Earth has been moving through a spiral of frequencies. And as we move up this spiral, it's very much, this is the music of the spheres. When you think of a keyboard or a piano, and you think of the tune of the notes, you know, you think of the keyboard, you're literally moving up the frequency, like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. You know, you just keep going higher, and these are higher notes. And so as we're moving into those higher notes, it changes everything in terms of the physics of how these planes have been working. And this is what a lot of us are starting to sense already, that what I used to do, it doesn't work anymore. And this is because literally the physics are changed. So at every level, when these stellar bodies align, a transmission happens. And the transmission in terms of how we receive it is dependent if the Earth has the neurological system to conduct it. And this is what's known as the Earth grid. And that grid is the consciousness grid that exists at multiple levels within this plane of our planet. So some of us that do grid work, it depends what our area of expertise is. We may be working on the 4th plane, we may be working on the 5th plane. You know, someone like myself, I'm working with the next plane. So it just depends what our job is. There's no value difference. But a lot of us are working with rehabilitating the hologram, which are these grid lines, so that consciousness and frequency can actually run through them appropriately without disrupting the surface of the Earth, so that we don't create a bunch of, like we did last time, blow it up, which apparently is not going to happen. So. We actually did this twice before and we blew it up. That's what that means.
But nothing really can prevent.
Nothing can prevent it. No, but the entities that are not too happy about what's happening are using mind control to try to subvert it. So the issue is being aware of that is important, so that you don't allow that to suppress you or put you in fear. Because if you work with a 12D energy, it doesn't matter where you are, because a lot of people are, in California, maybe not so much here, but there's a lot of talk about, is there going to be an earthquake? Is there going to be the big one? Are we going to have a tsunami? Should I leave Los Angeles? Should I leave New York? The seaboards are of concern. When you are in your 12th dimensional shield and hub, you have to remember you are creating an impact in the environment. And they have actually, I've done this testing a few times in my earlier stages of development, in working with a spinning field and actually averting like fires and catastrophes. You become a harmonizer to the environment, which means that the house next to you could be wiped out and there is a complete circle around yours. And I've actually seen that happen. I know it sounds like magical thinking. However, it's understanding and coming to the awareness that consciousness is everything. And as we are able to embody that God consciousness within us and we expand the influence of that field, we can literally subvert cataclysms. That's how powerful this consciousness, this awareness of who we are and what we are. So the powers that be there don't want us to know that. Because if we're in fear, we're easy to be controlled. So they're going to keep pumping out chemtrails, they're going to keep pumping out pharmaceuticals, they're going to keep pumping out crappy food, because that keeps us at a disadvantage, if we don't understand what's going on. So again, understand that this indeed is what's happening. It's nothing to fear, it just is what it is. But again, connecting into your source, understanding your eternal being, there is no death, you are safe and connected in this presence. And learning how to identify the fears and make sure you're not controlled by that, because this agenda will continue. We as human beings right now, in fact, it's very important, reptilian invasion timelines are starting to come out of Egypt. So what this means is we start fearing terrorism, because the seed fear of humanity is invasion. They know this, so they use terrorism to keep us in control. So this again puts all kinds of spin on our travels and are we going to be attacked and all, because again we have a core fear as a race of this invasion, terrorism energy. So it's really important to see where that control is being elicited so that you're not sucked into it. So it can be pretty powerful at times, Thank you. You can ask a question.
Yes, I'm curious, who is this black entity and why is it here? And,
Oh, you mean the controller forces what went on?
what's the purpose? Why? And
Because they want it. They want dominion of this realm. So it's not one entity, it's a group, it's a race. So imagine in another dimension there's a group of beings that consider themselves superior.
but we're all connected.
But they don't know this, they have their own mindset. Their belief is they're superior. And we, the human being, is supposed to serve their motivation. It's their particular choice. We're all in the universe together. So it's very much like, the human race. We have some people that are developed and some people that are not developed. Everybody's in the classroom. This exists at multiple levels. But again, it's not something to, fear or fixate on. It's just an awareness that this is indeed existing. There's a lot of information that talks about Illuminati and conspiracies and control, and this is nothing compared to the ETs out there. It's not that human beings, as much as it is orchestrated off planet. There is manipulation happening off planet. And the beings that implement that have sold out the human race because it is their families that receive the benefit of the resources of this planet. So again, the choice of humanity at this crossroads is, are we going to choose a more unified and aligned view of redistributing wealth and resources? Why do 400 people or families on the planet own all the resources of the earth? Isn't that highly imbalanced? So again, we're here to return balance back to the field, and that's really all that matters.
Is there conscious abetting by governments on this earth? Are they aware of what's going on and aiding and abetting it?
Yes. According, let's just say,
I want to hear.
What feels in alignment to you, I will say in my experience and according to my awareness, yes. This is why the guardians are intervening. Because of what has happened here is an extreme violation in the misappropriation of energy and the basically interrupting the connection of each being to have, by divine right, an alignment to their source. It's an interruption of the connection to source energy. Because again, if we look at human bodies on this planet, most people cannot feel their consciousness. They cannot feel their soul energy. And to the guardian perspective, that's because we've been damaged. That is our divine birthright. We should be able to feel our consciousness and our connection to God.
So are things improving?
Yes.
The pendulum is swinging?
Yes.
Wildly?
Yes.
Or not?
Yes. The issue I think is that, again, the group vibration of humanity is making the choice. And so that's why the light workers are here. We're trying to reach the critical mass. We're doing our part. And we're working hard. We've been working since birth. We've been out there cutting it down and working hard, doing the genetic path cutting work. And this is why, again, I think it's important to have that dialogue, because, again, there's nothing else that I can do. I am this. I am completely committed and dedicated to this. And it is what it is. There's nothing else that I would do here, but at times it's very rough. And so I think sometimes, having that dialogue is important because for a lot of us it has been. But it's worth it. Sorry, you can ask Linda, you're going to ask another question.
Is there a protocol to getting rid of these entities that are attached?
Honestly, I think the first place to start is with the 12-dimensional shield, and working with that, and then eventually, because again, we have a problem with our astral body. A lot of us have challenges with our astral body, which is the beginning of the soul matrix. A lot of what the guardians are here, what this intervention has been about, is coming in and rehabilitating the consciousness field so that it can become easier. Because there was a lot of infection, per se, let's say, in the emotional body of the human being, which is the astral plane. So I really feel this is beginning to change, but I think the focus really is shielding yourself. And again, I have a lot of techniques that get, into more advanced levels, but this is really the core practice. And, again, once we get adept at it, we can actually remove entities, but it comes to commanding your space. You get into the power and the core that nothing is going to get in the way of your connection with Source, period. And that takes, you can get there. So, thank you. So we have 5 minutes to answer a couple more questions. I'll get somebody that hasn't asked. You were going to ask a question.
Is there a connection between beneficial species, between Indigos, and between walk-ins?
I'm sorry. Indigos, walk-ins, and what?
Beneficial ETs.
Beneficial extraterrestrials? Well, in terms of there are beings like myself that my soul matrix was Assyrian. So that meant that there are beings that are incarnated in the physical human world here, that their higher identity in that intelligence level is actually an extraterrestrial. And that's literally what a starseed is, or a walk-in. It means an aspect of that self came and walked in. Ruth Montgomery, I think in the 90s, talked about walk-in, and my version of walk-in is much different, where the person that inhabited the body decides to leave and another whole soul matrix comes in to the body. That's not the most common walk-in. Usually there is a aspect of the higher being that walks in order to accomplish the mission or the schematics or the tech. Because this information very clearly would probably not have been cognized by the Lisa that was born here without the walk-in. It's very clear that the Syrian walk-in is what allowed all of this connection to occur, because for a long time I couldn't figure out, why am I seeing the ETs but no one else is? And I realized that because the control on the planet in the human race has been designed that you don't see them. That's what the frequency fence is about. So this is why extraterrestrial beings are actually the indigos, the crystals. They still have the coding to be able to see these higher planes of existence that the human being at this point in time has been shut off from that ability. So there are beneficial extraterrestrials that are part of the unity field that are here to support the ascension and the movement of this into a different age. And they are both embodied here and non-embodied here. Indigos are beings that came primarily from the 6th dimension. When you think of the 6th dimension as the indigo ray, the blue ray families, they came from the 6th dimension into the physical embodiment. So there's earth seeds that are the 3D beings. 3D beings came from the 4th dimension. It means they've been recycled a long time in the astral. We're here to stop the recycling, because what it's doing is damaging. If beings keep recycling themselves over and over again, they start to break down their genetic material. They start to create disease. They start to create, it's like you're playing the same nightmare over and over again and not realizing you're in a nightmare and you don't have to go through that. So that's what the recycling is. There was a tremendous amount of beings in the 4th dimension coming back to the 3rd dimension. They weren't going anywhere. They weren't evolving. And this is because there were control mechanisms to make that happen, and we're here to shift that. So the indigo being came from the 6th dimension to be a part of healing this. And the starseed is one that has genetic material from another planet or from another aspect of self and is bringing it here to help the planet, because the planet needs that genetic material in order to heal some of the things that have happened here. Does that make any sense? Okay, great. I think we are coming to a close.
One more question.
One more question? I have time for one more question. Anna.
You're talking about don't open an astral door unless you know how to close them. If you're working with the 12D shield and you feel like you've come to a point where you've strengthened it with have any quick pointers on what you can do to be able, if you are going to be opening up to work with your hub and connect to hubs around the world to create and help with the general vibration of our human consciousness and earthly consciousness, what can you do to make sure that you are doing it with discernment, with integrity, and making sure that other things aren't going to use those portals or those astral doors for their own purposes and not for the highest benefit of all. Is there anything that you can...
Well,
I know it's complicated.
It is. I think really the most important issue is that there is always the opening. You're setting the opening, you state your intention, you do the work, you say thank you, and you close it. It's very, the opening and the closing is very important because a lot of times what happens is you're setting the space and you're creating the alchemy and then you don't close it. And that's what a lot of people do is they forget that you have to make sure that you actually seal that now. And a lot of the times if you're working on extraction, fill it. So like when you take out an implant, you also want to fill it with light. You don't want to just rip it out because what happens is that the universe doesn't like a void, it'll fill it. So always make sure that when you're extracting something, you fill it with light. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that. And a lot of the times working with a 12-dimensional shield, you can also spin that field, right? You're in your shield, spin out a field. And then you're creating a container. Always create a container. And then command the dominion of the space of God within this container. Is that help?
Yeah, and then the closing one, it's with your intention.
Yes.
Okay, now I'm
Yes.
closing this.
Exactly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
It is done. So
Yes, exactly. Yes. Perfect. Yes. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got some helpful tools and insights. Again, the website has a lot of information. The 12D Shield is there for download. And the introduction CD is kind of like a basic spiritual house cleaning. If you don't have something like this at home, you should try to get something like that, just so you get several techniques that you get familiar with to use in your day-to-day lives. So again, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.